Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. Proud to be here with you. Typically every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. PJ had some woes. I had some woes. 2020 has been the year of woe. So we've done it. We did it. We're here. Let's smile. Let's have fun. Let's have a good time. Inside the Cafe Kubal studios, you are watching and listening to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You're watching on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. You are listening on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us where sports meets life inside of the Cafe Kubal studios with 5 terrific locations all around Syracuse. You'll find them at 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital, and their newest location on 208 North Townsend Street, the Holly Green Cafe, with a bunch of new indoor seating and a whole new dining area that you got to check out that we're going to be posting on social media this week. So make sure you stay close to us on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. With all that being said, we're inside of Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com's What's Poppin'. And when it comes to watching any of your favorite Netflix shows, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO, Amazon Prime, as well as all the games that you love, you got to get your popcorn ready. And you could do that with flavors, traditional flavors like white or orange cheddar, as well as caramel corn, which is G-Mama's favorite. And I'm sure that she's got an endless supply of that up in heaven. You can get any of those, or you can get your banana split, your chocolate cake, your birthday cake, and so on and so forth by going to maandpaspopcorn.com. You can order anywhere in the world, and they'll have it shipped to you, or you can pick it up on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Use the promo code DT20, that's DT20, the exclusive Wake Up Call promo code, and you'll get 20% off of your order, whether it's for in-store pickup or delivery to your household. I can get it and pick it up. PJ can get it and have it delivered to the Sunshine State. And using the promo code DT20, I'll get you 20% off and ready for you to watch your favorite show or favorite game with your favorite snack at maandpaspopcorn.com. With that being said, hour number 1 is all PJ. Papa Joe is going to be joining us here in just a second to speak on Syracuse football, the Florida Gators, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and college football in general, coronavirus and what it's done to affect sports, and we'll make our Week 7 college picks. In hour number 2, I'll be joined by Syracuse Orange defensive line alum Eric Kroom to speak on the state of the Orange. With all that being said, let's bring in PJ. PJ, how are we doing today?
Morning, Daniel. Looks like we had to wake up our equipment this morning, eh?
Yeah, it looks like our equipment didn't wake up like we woke up. I woke up on the right side of the bed. Hopefully you did too, PJ. How is life going for you right now?
Well, it's very good down here. It's still pretty hot, but we're used to it. We're waiting for our first sort of cold snap, if you call it that, just a cool snap, really, so we can get some fresh air in here, open up the house, and get some nice breeze. But it's still pretty hot down here.
Yeah, I can only imagine and live vicariously through. I mean, it's actually been really nice up here. The sun's been shining pretty much every single day. It's been rather beautiful, and so I have nothing to complain about by any stretch of the imagination. I've been very happy to see the sun shining the way that it has been, so I have no complaints whatsoever. For you in the Sunshine State, let's start with your Gators. What are your complaints about the Gators right now?
Oh, Daniel. Oi, 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 oi. Well, I sort of felt this one coming on because they're giving up too many points, and sure enough, old Jimbo put it to them. The Gators can't stop anyone, and for a conference who prides itself on defense, these 3 games this last weekend of the best teams in the conference couldn't stop anyone. LSU couldn't stop Missouri, of all things, and Lane Kiffin, we know what he's going to do over there, and he almost beat his mentor at Alabama. So, it's not. It's they got to remember how to play defense. That's how this conference thrives. It thrives on defense, and Dan Mullen's got to figure it out. I mean, I'm critical of him all week long. I've been really critical of him. He wanted. Dan Mullen is a top flight coach. He's a great leader of men. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to recruit. But sometimes he puts his foot in his mouth. And just when Florida lost to Texas A&M in the last couple of seconds there in the field goal, all he could think about was how the screaming fans at Texas A&M were a big go for the Texas A&M fans, for the players, and he didn't stop to think, well, I can't talk that way because I can't because it's from the virus and all this other kind of stuff. So what did he do? He turns around and he says, I want the swamp filled next week with 90,000 screaming people. Yeah. The governor's given us okay to do that, and there he goes. He says it. So now he's in trouble. Now the hierarchy's pissed off at him. You can't say things like that, Dan. But he's standing by. He's standing by what he said. He wants to see the swamp filled up with screaming Gator fans. And well, as much as I love him as a coach, I think you made a big mistake there. And I think he's probably going to eventually realize that he probably needs to apologize a little bit. I don't know if he ever will, but he needs to back up a little bit. Now, on top of that, well over 24 kids are affected by the virus. So what does the league do? They shut down the game between LSU and Florida. So now Dan can't have his 90,000 people there because he's not going to have a team to play. So that's where we are with Dan right now. But Coach Mullen needs to brush up on his defense. He's not much of a defensive guy. He's got Larry Grantham there who's been there he's a defensive really stalwart from around college football and pro football too. Actually, he had a really good job for almost $2 million a year to go pro. I think it was at Cincinnati. But he's not showing his colors now either because he's got a bunch of blue chip athletes down here, and he's not stopping anyone. So I don't know what the problem is, but in my opinion, it's strictly coaching. It's not the kids. He's got plenty of kids, plenty of 4 and 5 and 3-star kids to stop people. So Florida's at a crossroads right now, and frankly, when I was watching that game, and as they're going back and forth and the ebb and flow of the game, and Texas A&M was they were gaining any kind of yards they wanted to, at all, at any time. So I'm thinking to myself, this isn't going to get any better, and it didn't get any better. So Florida is at a crossroads right now, and I think as I was watching that game, I said to myself, you know what? Their season's already over. They're done. Toast. You're going to have one loss. You're not going to be able to get in the championship game. You're sure as hell not going to beat Georgia in a couple weeks. You're damn sure not going to beat Alabama if you play for the SEC championship. So I'm sitting there thinking, here it is after 3 games, you've lost your season, coach. So that's where I am right now, and I'm critical of the Gators. I'm critical of how they played. They certainly didn't play. They had a lack of effort. That's not never a case with Florida. Yeah. They always play hard. But Coach Mullen and Coach Grantham, they got to get with it now. Now they got an extra week or so to plan. They're not going to play a mean, badass LSU team. So what can I say? I mean, I'm very disappointed, and for all the Gator fans throughout the country. And for all you SEC fans out in the country, now you can all the bad mouth. You can start bad mouthing the SEC now because it does not look like the SEC that we've built tradition on down here in the South. There are a lot of teams that are not as good as they think they are, and there's a lot of teams that are not going to win this year, except for maybe Alabama. So, if you want to beat up the SEC this year, go ahead because I'm giving you permission.
And Papa Joe giving you permission to talk about the SEC, that says something. It says something about the state of the SEC in your opinion, and it says something about where you're at. Missouri and LSU, there was no defense, 45-41. We saw it, like you said, Texas A&M and Florida, 41-38. Alabama and Ole Miss, 63-48. That looked like a Big 12 game. What? I mean, when you start to see the SEC look like the Big 12 and you just got to outscore your opponents, and you got a game where there's over 100 points being scored between the two. In the Alabama-Ole Miss game, there was 111 points scored. What does that make you think of?
Well, I guess the first thing the first thing I think of, there's no defense, and I don't understand. I do understand how Lane Kiffin. I know how he works. I mean, I just watched him for years. I've seen him down here in Alabama when he was here. The man is a genius when it comes to an offensive football team. He turns around Florida Atlantic down there. He just has a propensity to do that. He has a way about him. He carries himself a little differently than most coaches. He was kind of a punk ass when he was younger, but now he's an older punk ass. But he knows what he's doing. He knows how to plan for a team, and he planned for Alabama. And there was talk down here that Mississippi had found out Alabama's defensive plan, and they were going against it. And I don't know if that's going to come to fruition or anything like that, any kind of charges or anything. But it seems like that every time Alabama did something, Mississippi had an answer for it. So, and for Alabama to score that many points and just barely win and give up a million yards, there's a lot to be said for a good coach on defense in the SEC. Unfortunately, our coaches that are down here right now are not carrying their weight.
Yeah, and I mean, how much do you buy into that? I mean, Lane Kiffin was there with Nick Saban, so, he arguably, it could be that, he knows the different defensive sets and schemes and whatnot. Alabama wins, but Nick Saban turns around and says, I think maybe they knew. Maybe they knew our sign. Maybe they knew what we were going to do. How much do you buy in? Well, two questions, really. Do you think that Nick Saban should even be talking about this after winning? He won the game. It's not like he lost. And then number two, how much do you think that this is a conspiracy, and how much is it just Lane Kiffin knowing his old coach?
It's just Lane being Lane. Older Lane train just rolled in Mississippi. We all knew what was going to happen. And with him is controversy. That's the way he is. But he's got those kids believing that they can score on anyone. And damn, I don't want to play him right now. I would not want to play him right now. And he's going to beat a lot of good teams. He's probably going to go to a bowl. But Lane isn't a defensive guy. He hires a defensive coach and he says, "You take care of it because I don't want nothing to do with it. All I want to do is score points." And that's what he's doing. But I think Coach Saban maybe got a little bit of the ass under him. He wasn't too happy with everything. So I saw him shouting on the sidelines a few times. I mean, let's face it, his athletes, which are far better than what Florida or Georgia or anyone has, they couldn't stop Mississippi. So maybe it is something to do with the game plan. Maybe they did find out a little something. Maybe they recognized something that was in their tapes that they watch. Whatever it was that, Kiffin was going to keep on scoring until he outscored him, until he ran out of time. So I'm happy. I'm happy for him. I think he's a good coach. I mean, he's a little unusual, but a little arrogant at times. But he'll bring those kids. He'll make those kids believe they can win, and he almost did it.
Yeah, Ole Miss, just to make mention here, since Lane Kiffin's become the head coach, they scored 35 on Florida, 42 on Kentucky, and 48 on Alabama. So right around 40 points in these three games, and now because of what they had, averaging in that region. What can you say to that? The fact, I mean, like you said, he's an offensive guy. He's going to score. Can that work? Can that last? Can that live in the SEC? I mean, obviously he's got to be able to shut down somebody at some point. But what do you think about Lane's return to the SEC and scoring and getting his team to score 35, 42, 48. Remember, these are not the guys that he recruited. So, what are your thoughts on the fact that he has brought this team to around 40 points a game, even though they've only won one game?
Yeah, he's an offensive genius is what he is. You're right. He's the athletes there he didn't really know. I mean, he certainly didn't. And he just has a way of scheming. He's a clever guy. He has a way of scheming. But eventually, I think the guys will catch up to him. Some of the coaches will catch up to him, and maybe a couple of guys will shut him down. But that's not going to stop him. He'll just throw in another wrinkle. He likes to use different motions. He likes to set halfbacks out and tight ends all over the place. I mean, he wants to do his quick football, fast football to the line of scrimmage, and they certainly are playing fast. And Alabama couldn't stay with them. And I thought Alabama looked a little winded there in the fourth quarter, but it was just a matter of just hanging on, really. So I'm sure that Coach Saban is yelling at his team, and his Coach Lane's not yelling at his team. He's happy with his team. If he wants to keep outscoring guys 60-45, that's fine with him, because that's what's going to say. Is he going to start recruiting some better offensive players? If they're out there looking and say, God, look what Coach Kiffin's doing with these guys. If they get someone like me, who I'm a 4-star athlete from Mississippi, damn, I'm going to score some touchdowns. So, it just raises the level of confidence that he has there, and his coaches are buying into him. So, except for a defensive coach, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a defensive coach on his staff. I mean, yeah. I'm sure he leaves them alone, but what are you going to do? I mean, look at Florida's got one of the best defensive coaches in the country, and he can't stop anyone now. So I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. Florida's going to have to play hard. Yeah. The biggest game of the year is going to be against Georgia, and if they beat Georgia, then they got a chance to win the Eastern Division and then perhaps play Alabama. So Florida still has some work to do. Georgia's a hell of a defensive team. I mean, they've stopped everyone. So I'm looking forward to the biggest cocktail party in the South, which probably won't be a cocktail party because they're probably not going to let anyone in the stands anymore. So that goes back to what Coach Mullen was saying about, I want 90,000 people in the swamp. Well, he forgot where he was for a moment. He forgot the protocols that are in place for his young men and for the schools and for the league. He just blurted right out, I want 90,000 people in my stadium. The governor has given us permission to open things up. I want to see 90,000 people there. Yeah. And the university says that ain't going to happen, Dan. I'm sorry, bud, but so he's got to eat crow on that. So he's going to have a little time to work with his team. Right now, Florida has shut down all activities with the football team. They're not practicing or not doing nothing. So they're stagnant. And with that, of course, came the cancellation of the LSU game. So we'll see what picks up. They're probably going to run through the weekend. Monday they'll pick things back up again and see what happens during the week. This virus is still messing with us, Daniel. It's still messing with us.
I think it's crazy how Dan Mullen, just within a few days, not even a week, of Dan Mullen saying, I want the stadium open to 90,000 people, a game gets postponed due to coronavirus. Very, very ironic to go from open it up to we're not playing the game right now. Right. So, where we're sitting in this is Florida and LSU. It is not going to be happening. The game, it's not going to be happening this week. The game has been rescheduled for the SEC's built-in bye week, which is right around the old championship week, December 12th, which is the week before the SEC championship that's been pushed. So the game was, the SEC said that the game was postponed, quote, or was postponed due to, quote, positive tests and subsequent quarantine of individuals with the Florida football program, end quote. Florida had 18 positives among scholarship players, 3 among walk-ons, is what Athletic Director Scott Strickland said this week on Wednesday. He said the players and staff members who tested positive are asymptomatic or they have mild symptoms. Said he doesn't have an exact number of players who are now under contact trace quarantine, but when adding in those with the positive cases and non-COVID related injured players, Florida had at least 50 scholarship players, had less than 50 scholarship players available, which is less than half the team. Now, I know Virginia Tech has done some things. They played without a bunch of players recently here in a shootout with North Carolina. They lost, but they had, I think, more than 15 players that were unavailable. The SEC's Return to Activity and Medical Guideline Task Force stipulated that a team must have at least 53 scholarship players available to play a game, including 7 offensive linemen with 1 center, 4 D linemen, and 1 quarterback. So you have to have at least 53. I think the 53 number makes sense with the SEC saying you have to have at least 53 to play because the SEC is, the NFL's farm team. So it makes a lot of sense to have the number 53, which is what the NFL needs as well. So, coming off of a loss to Texas A&M, this game getting moved, good or bad for the Florida Gators to have a break in the middle of their season that they weren't expecting to have after a loss to Texas A&M?
Well, I hate to see him losing momentum because, quite frankly, Kyle Trask can score on anyone. I don't care who they're playing. I don't care if he's playing Alabama. He will score on Alabama. That sort of breaks it right there. They lost the momentum. Dan Mullen has to sit back and it really criticize himself on how he's handled this whole situation. I mean, he's got kids. He's got kids that he's responsible for, and the parents of those kids are listening to what he's saying. He wants the stadium full in the swamp, yet he's got 25 kids that can't play because of a virus. He's not thinking right. He needs to digest this whole thing. He needs to chill it, and he needs to just take a couple of rests. Like my good buddy Dabrowski up there in Milwaukee says, you got to pump the brakes. Pump the brakes, Dan. Relax. Understand what you're talking about, and then maybe come back and speak a little bit more intelligently on the situation. I'm certainly, I'm sure all Gator fans were enthusiastic when he started talking that way about, I want the swamp filled. But then the more you reflect on it, the more he's wrong.
Yeah,
so
it's insane.
Yeah,
so,
it's not correct.
In reality here, in what we're living in the rankings, and you and I have discussed this before, speaking here with Papa Joe this morning, inside of his normal post on Thursday mornings in hour number 1, the Florida Gators losing to Texas A&M rose Texas A&M 10 spots in the AP, put Florida down 6. Agree or disagree? And I also want to look at the coaches poll. Florida went down 6 in that one as well. They went down to 9th. Texas A&M went to 11th in that one. They went up at 9 spots. So in the AP and the coaches poll, Florida's dropping and Texas A&M's rising has put them almost back to back. They're 10 and 11, Florida to Texas A&M respectively in the AP after Texas A&M beat Florida. And in the coaches poll, Florida is 9, Texas A&M is 11. Agree or disagree that Texas A&M beating Florida should put them right there neck and neck with Florida in the polls, 10 and 11 and 9 and 11. Agree or disagree that Florida's drop should have been as vast and Texas A&M rise should have been as large to put them almost dead even, meaning that if Texas A&M is to win their next game, Florida is to lose, or if Texas A&M just has a credible win according to the people out there in the polls, that they would jump Florida. Agree or disagree that they're that close after Texas A&M's win?
Well, let's put it this way: if Florida played Texas A&M, they'd beat them 4 out of 5 times, but 1 out of 5 they didn't. So the pundits out there say, well, Florida can score a lot of points, and so can Texas A&M. If this is going to be a league of the offense this year, we're gonna drop Florida. I think Florida's about where they need to be. Texas A&M thing's a little bit high. They need to play better and score more against quality opponents. And they're in the SEC West, and Auburn's looking at them, and Mississippi State, and Alabama, of course. So I think Jimbo, they paid Jimbo an awful lot of money to go over there, $7.5 million for 10 years to go rebuild that program over there. If one of his results was beating Florida at their own game of offense, then so be it. Jimbo's is probably going to do a good job over there. He may not do as well as he did at Florida State, but his team right now does not belong in top 10.
Agree or disagree, coming off of that Florida deserved to drop past Penn State, who hasn't played a single game. Penn State is number 9 in the poll, in the AP, 8 in the coaches poll. Florida losing to Texas A&M has dropped them past a team who hasn't played a single game, and also past a team in Ohio State who hasn't played a single game. Ohio State is 6, Penn State is 9 in the AP, Ohio State is 5, and Penn State is 8 in the coaches poll. Agree or disagree that Florida should drop past 2 teams that haven't played a single game yet? Does it make any sense?
I think we discussed that last week.
Oh, we did, but now Florida has dropped by. It has now flown by both of these teams. So I think Florida's a good example of this, of how does this make any logical sense that Florida is worse than Penn State as well as worse than Ohio State, who haven't played a single game and will not start their season until October 24th?
Well, it's true. They don't even need to be ranked. Anyone with a 0-0 record should not even be ranked. Let the teams that are playing now and are showing their stuff. I like Florida's position right now. I don't have a problem with it. Of course, I think that they needed to be ranked higher than Penn State and Ohio State. But you have alumni throughout the country, and they're always hemming and harping. They're always complaining to someone about something, and they want to see their teams in the top 10. So whatever. It's just these polls can get out of hand sometimes, and there certainly isn't there's no cohesion when they're doing these things. They just said, well, we know that Oklahoma State or Ohio State is going to have a good quarterback this year, and we think they're going to lose maybe one game this year, so we're going to put them in the top 10 before they even start. Well, let them earn it first. Let them earn it. Of course they need to be ranked outside of the top 25 until they start showing their colors. When they start showing their colors, if Ohio State can beat teams 55-10 for the rest of the year, then perhaps maybe they should be number one. But not now. They don't even need to be ranked.
No, and I think it's ridiculous, and it shows. I mean, there's some polls that I value. I value my voting in the American Athletic polls and the ACC polls and whatnot. And there's other opportunities out there that can arise that I'm also able to vote in. So I think I take that vote very seriously. I take it with a lot of weight. And so when I see these polls in the AP and the coaches poll that are vastly ridiculous. Oregon is in there as well at 12 in the AP. They haven't played. 16 in the coaches poll. Makes absolutely no sense. Minnesota is in both. Michigan is in both. And so Wisconsin is in both. I mean, you look at this, it's not even like there's a couple. There's a lot. And they're taking up spots from teams that got votes. Marshall got 105 votes. Almost made the AP top 25. The NC State, Oklahoma. Tulsa has gotten 61 votes for the AP. UCF got 57. Boston College, 42. Coastal Carolina, 37. They just won last night as well. UAB's gotten 29 votes. And the other one in the coaches poll, UCF got 93 to be the 26th team. NC State got 89. Oklahoma, 87. Marshall, 73. Bunch of teams getting votes to try and get into that. So, it doesn't make a lot of logical sense. It makes no sense whatsoever, and it proves just how corrupt things are in college football. If you ever wanted to prove it, and it's like, well, Dan, I could argue that, I can understand that, but I also see the other side. There's no other side to a 0-0 team being ranked and rising in the rankings like these teams have done. So it's one thing to be ranked when you have no games played. It's another thing to say, you know what, that team that I've seen nothing of, that hasn't been on the field, that hasn't done anything for months, I think they're going to be even better. Let's take them from 20 to 19, because not only have I not seen them play, I haven't seen them play, and I think they deserve to jump a team that just played. So it makes no sense, but last thing about the rankings that I will say is that LSU has been dropped from the rankings. The team that is the reigning national champion, the college football playoff champion with Coach O, has been dropped from the AP, where they were 17, dropped from the coaches poll, where they were 16. LSU, your thoughts on the Tigers as they have been dropped this week from both rankings? What are your thoughts? Did they deserve to be dropped from the rankings?
Oh, certainly. Coach O, he's got some real serious problems down there. And frankly, it's on defense, and he's a defensive stalwart. Their quarterback, that Miles kid, is gonna be a good job. He's gonna score some points on him. But LSU has got some serious problems, and I don't know what he's gonna do. I think he's got to look at himself. He's got to look at his coaches, because again, certainly LSU has the players to develop, to make plays, to make wins, and he's got some problems. I'm not sure. I hate to say it, but I think it's probably organizational problems. I don't think it's the kids. I think he's going to have to sit back and maybe realign everything and maybe give out some different duties. Whatever. He's going to have to stop the bleeding, because the fans love Coach O down there, but they'll love Coach O only when he wins. So if Coach O winds up this season 6-6 or 7-5, they're gonna want his butt. So I'm sure Coach O is in a tough position right now, but he's gonna have to man up. I mean, he's got to do it. I mean, if he had to, he'd go out there and play himself. Looks like he's in shape to play.
Yeah.
But of course he won't do that. But he's got to man up. He's got some serious problems.
Yeah, he definitely does. And LSU dropped from the rankings with their season, defeating one team at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's unranked, 41-7, losing to two unranked teams. They haven't played a ranked team. Their first ranked team on the schedule is supposed to be Florida this week, which has now been moved, like we said, to December 12th. So they are 1-2 against teams not ranked in the nation's top 25, which has made them fall out of the rankings. And I imagine that Louisiana, another team in the state of Louisiana, will also fall from the rankings, as Louisiana just lost to Coastal Carolina last night. They were ranked 21 in both polls. PJ and I got a lot more to unpack. We got Syracuse to talk about and the Jacksonville Jaguars that have something in common From this past week. Both teams lost to winless teams. We'll talk about that right after this fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Stay with us.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code ABS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Trapper's Pizza Pub, located on 5950 Butternut Drive in East Syracuse. Right off of Bridge Street is your local community supporter right around the corner. Join us on site at Trapper's Pizza Pub for our live monthly broadcast supporting Central New York student athletes and their sports programs. Call 315-438-4444 for more information. And find us on Facebook and Instagram at Trapper's Pizza Pub. Trapper's Pizza Pub, your local community supporter right around the corner.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, hanging out inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. And, of course, you're watching here on Facebook Live on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. They always say to wave hi to Mom when you're on camera. So, hi, Mom. So, happy to be here with you. Inside of Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Use the promo code anywhere in the world, including in Syracuse, whether you're picking it up at the store on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, or if you are having it delivered to your home, go to maandpaspopcorn.com and you can use the promo code DT20 for in-store pickup or delivery. DT20, that's DT20. Get 20% off on us right here from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn. Big thanks to them. PJ's hanging out with us in hour number 1. Going to skate a little bit into hour number 2. Papa Joe, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Syracuse Orange have something in common, and it's not just Doug Marrone. It is the fact that both teams last weekend lost to winless teams. The Jacksonville Jaguars gave Houston their first win after they fired their coach and GM, Bill O'Brien. And the Syracuse Orange gave the first win of the season to the Duke Blue Devils, who came in 0-4. They allowed not one, but two 160-yard rushers in that game, 332 yards between two running backs Syracuse allowed. They lost their quarterback. They found out that one of their lead defensive players and arguably one of their greatest safeties in the history of college football at Syracuse, Andre Sisco, has ended his season after injury and has declared for the NFL draft. So, insult to injury for sure happening in Syracuse. Both Syracuse and Jacksonville losing to winless teams in the same weekend. That connects me to both. It connects them to each other. And Doug Marrone used to be the coach at Syracuse and is now the coach at Jacksonville. So, a lot of connections. Not a great one this past weekend. What are your thoughts?
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, I was catching a little bit of the Syracuse game, and I could see that they were having a difficult time winning the line of scrimmage. And, you know, Coach Babers may be in a little bit of trouble up there, maybe, huh? I hate to see that because, I mean, he's a good man, he's a good coach. He does an awful lot with players that are maybe not highly recruited as some of these other schools have. It's unfortunate because I think he's a good man, and I wish him luck. I just don't know what he's going to do about his defense. Offense, I think they're okay. The DeVito's still there, right? He's a senior this year now, DeVito?
Well, DeVito, technically, but he would have one more year.
Oh, okay, all right. Anyway, he looks like he can still move the ball. So, Coach Babers has got to come up with some defensive alignments here so he can, your defense can't be on the field that long. If the other team is grinding out 5 yards in a cloud of dust, getting first downs, you can't get your defensive team off the field. It's going to get worse as the game goes on. So, yeah. But the Jaguars, I was hoping that they had it. Let's face it, Houston is not a kind of team that's going to be winless. Let's face it, they have too much talent. Coach O'Brien looks like he was an idiot from the start. Probably maybe a poor choice of words, but he wasn't measuring well down there. And when you got someone like Deshaun Watson who's running your team, you need to win a lot more than you did. I sort of knew that Houston was going to win this game. I was hoping they weren't. Jacksonville played well. They certainly, their kicker didn't do what he was supposed to do, so they got rid of him already. Kid didn't even warm up. They got rid of him. Yeah. So, Jacksonville, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. They played well enough to win, but when you got a team that's being run by Deshaun Watson and who's winless, they're going to win for their new coach, who's Romeo Cornell, who's been around for years, the big old kind of a teddy bear kind of guy, but he's a defensive coach also, too. Jacksonville has issues on defense. They can't rush the passer, and they can't stop the run. Until they do that, we're going to have this. We're going to continue to have this conversation every week, and it's not going to get any better until they plug the holes. Offense-wise, I think Minshaw's doing the best he can. He's getting hit a lot, but he got the one time he fumbled, he got hit from the blind side, so I really can't fault him on that. Look at the kid makes plays, he makes passes, he scores touchdown. I mean, he does well. He's doing okay. there's something missing in this Jacks team, and maybe it's organizational too. I hate always use that term because I hate to blame the players. I mean, he's got good enough players. It's organizational, maybe. I don't know. Now they picked up a kid from the Titans named Carrera, who's wasn't playing over there. He got all pissed off with Coach Vrabel over there. He said, "I'm not playing for you anymore." So the Jacksonville gave him, I don't know, a 6th and a 7th round pick or something to bring this guy in. So maybe he'll plug some holes. We'll see. But I'm not displeased the way that the Jacksonville's playing.
Yeah.
I think they're spirited enough. They're trying. They're not lowering their heads. I mean, they're proud. They're doing okay. They're just not winning. I mean, they're just not over that hump. And I don't think it's that. I certainly can't. You can't blame the quarterback. You can blame your defensive players, but I wouldn't do that either. I think it's organizational. I think they need to start from the top down and do what Coach Mullen's got to do over there in Florida. You got to come up with some schemes, some better plans to stop the opposing team. So either that or do better coaching.
Yeah, and the reality of it all is, Jacksonville struggling. You had brought up a statistic off the air that's they're. And well, I'm going to let you say it, against the Dolphins, the Bengals, and the Texans in a row. To tell everybody the unfortunate history that Jacksonville has made.
Jacksonville is the only team in history of the NFL that has lost to 3 teams that were winless to start the season. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Think about that. I mean, it's a stupid little sidelight, but you don't want to be remembered for something like that.
No.
For losing to a team that had been winless before they played you.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, that hurts the heart right there. But it is what it is. So I mean, if you're going to be in the record books, Jacksonville, but I don't think you want to be in that way.
No, Jacksonville in the record books for losing to 3 winless teams. The Titans, the Dolphins, and the Bengals. Or pardon me, the Dolphins, the Bengals, the Texans to start the season. That's 3 in a row. The team is 1-4. But I do want to make mention of something. Tom Brady has 1,375 passing yards in 5 games. Also in the state of Florida, Gardner Minshew, the second, has 1,439 passing yards, more than Tom Brady. Tom Brady's completion percentage this season is 64.3. Gardner Minshew's is 69.9. Tom Brady's touchdown interceptions, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Gardner Minshew, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So, I'm not saying that Gardner Minshew is Tom Brady. I'm not saying that Gardner Minshew would have won as many Super Bowls. I'm not saying they're the same player. All I'm saying is the reason for these statistics to be sent to you today is to state the case that Jacksonville's offense and their offensive leader is not that bad. If you're okay with Tom Brady doing his thing, his numbers are where they are this year. They're right in line with Gardner Minshew, or they're below Gardner Minshew. So before people continue the stupid conversation of tanking for Trevor Lawrence, let me remind you that Gardner Minshew is not the problem in Jacksonville.
That's right. Very well said. Trevor Lawrence, of course, is going to be the first person drafted. What can you say? I get exasperated when I talk about the Jaguars, and I watch him. I'm sitting in my chair, then I scream or something. And Mary says, "What happened?" Da, 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 da. She's trying to figure me out. But I just get exasperated. Minshew, to his credit, he certainly has enough guts to do what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's beginning to have a pretty good idea of who he can throw to in certain situations. I think that he has enough weapons to score enough points. They're just not doing it. Whether Gruden is not calling the right plays, I mean, let's face it, Gruden has had enough time with Minshew to know his strengths. He knows what he can do good and what he can't do bad. Minshew, for all his good points, he maybe hangs on to a ball a little bit too long. He dances around the pocket really well. Reminds me of Aaron Rodgers. He just feels something, and then he moves his feet and gets away from it. And if they can keep him in the pocket and keep him standing, which I think they're doing a pretty good job, he can score some points. Gruden needs to be called on the carpet here too. I mean, he came over from Washington as another offensive guru, sort of like his brother, and I don't think he's tapped into enough of what Gardner Minshew can do. The kid's a winner. He was taught by Mike Leach, one of the greatest offensive minds in college football, period. And, let Gruden play to his strengths. You got rid of a running back that was a malcontent. You got a dynamite little guy back there, Robinson, who just is, he's a breath of fresh air. I mean, who would ever think that this kid coming from a minor school like that would have this kind of impact on professional football his very first year? Think about that. Then using him. I mean, you may be using him too much because I think Minshew, completed something like 6 or 7 passes to him this last week, which means he's tossing to him coming out of the backfield because doesn't have anything open down the field. So, but don't run the guy in the ground. I mean, spread him out a little bit more, but don't throw him 10 passes and expect to complete 10 to this little guy. I mean, he's a tough little guy, and he's getting good yards in the middle. He's getting good yards outside. Yeah. He's a breath of fresh air, and the Jaguars are really, really, really close to being a real good team. The defense has to shore up. I mean, they got to stop the run. They got to get after the passer. They're not getting any sacks at all. You can't let a good quarterback sit back there like Watson, especially, and not get after him. I mean, Watson's going to kill you, and he did. But I know I'm on their bandwagon all the time to Jacksonville. Of course I am. I mean, it's a local team. I love them. I want to see them play well, and I may seem a little outlandish sometimes when I say these things, but they are really, really close to being a good team, and it's up to the coaches to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to make mention of, Jacksonville playing from behind in these games means that Gardner Minshew is forced to throw the ball late in games, and with him being forced to throw the ball late in games, he's still right at 69.9% completion percentage and only 4 interceptions in 5 games to 10 touchdowns. So I do want to make of note to state the point even deeper about Gardner Minshew II and him not being the problem in Jacksonville. This team playing from behind to the Titans, to the Dolphins, to the Bengals, to the Texans, he is still not turning the ball over. He is still playing smart, and his completion percentage is high, even though defenses know that he's throwing the ball late in games. And I think that that's important to say.
That's right, exactly. Well said. So let's hope that they pull through. Let's hope that they come up with something. A better offensive plan, better defensive plan. Maybe this kid coming from the Titans will plug some holes in the defensive line somewhere. Maybe they'll flank them out somewhere, rush the passer or something. But let's hope. Let's hope.
So the Jaguars getting Tennessee Titans outside linebacker Correa, as well as a 2021 7th-round pick to give up a 2021 6th-round pick. He was frustrated with his role after playing only 38 snaps on defense, which is 14% of the time, and 23 special team snaps. It gives him, who's a 5-year veteran, Correa, gives him a fresh start, and he's staying in the AFC South, and he now gets to face off against the Tennessee Titans at least one more time. If he's only with Jacksonville this year, he gets to face them at least one more time, and that'll be December 13th in Jacksonville, Florida. So there's something to be said about that. The fact that they got a linebacker to come to them from the AFC South, and someone who is who is frustrated, upset, and ready to go. Frustrated at the Tennessee Titans, frustrated at his time. You got somebody who's got a chip on his shoulder, and he's pissed off at the AFC South. So there's an opportunity for him to maybe make a strike in a positive way for Jacksonville. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So you can look at something in that respect. The Jaguars need help there at linebacker after Leon Jacobs has a torn ACL that he suffered during the Miami Dolphins game. And Cassius Marsh, who was signed to a 1-year, $910,000 contract, stepped in at strong side linebacker for Jacobs and has had 3 tackles in the past 2 games. So they need some help there. They need to have somebody that's going to give them something. They don't have a ton of depth at linebacker. So why not take a guy who wants to play, a guy who's frustrated, and a guy who loathes one of your biggest rivals in the division? Seems like an all-around win for Jacksonville if Correa can play well.
I hope so, too. But, you bring up a good point about these guys not being comfortable playing where they are. They're professional athletes, and they want to shine. They want to play well. They want to be given a chance to play well.
Yeah.
Now you got Le'Veon Bell, who they couldn't trade up in New York, so they got to give him away. There's too many players that are saying that I don't want to play here anymore. I want to get out. So, and some of our own Jacksonville ones, of course. But I don't like that. If you're drafted by a team and you're going through camp with a team and you're playing for a team, you need to play for the team. If you're not good enough, you're not going to play. And some of these guys, Le'Veon Bell, I have no idea what his problem is. First of all, he should never left Pittsburgh. Never left Pittsburgh. Yeah. So now he's got his own problems now. He's going to be picked up as a retread. Someone's going to sign him, of course. And this young man coming from Tennessee, I don't want to hear that he's bitching because he doesn't have enough playing time. Well, if you're not good enough to play for Coach Vrabel, then, you're not good enough. But you may be good enough to play for us. Let's hope that he is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as he gets set to play with the Jacksonville Jaguars instead of against them as they move forward here. Here with Papa Joe, speaking on a lot of different topics around the gridiron. PJ, before we get to our picks for the week, coronavirus has obviously reared its ugly head. It's affected the NFL schedule with the Titans. It's affected the Steelers. It's affected the Patriots. And now looks to potentially affect, as of today, the Atlanta Falcons. What are your thoughts on coronavirus and what it has done? It's affected the SEC. It's moved games in the SEC. It's moved your Gators and LSU's game, as we spoke about earlier, from this week all the way to mid-December. What's your take on coronavirus? The teams are still trying to play. They're trying to battle through it. I want to temper people's fears and worries in saying that baseball went through a lot of this too, and they're about to end their season, so it can be done. But the NFL and college football, since coming back, have realized when it comes to teams like Houston and teams like Baylor, teams, like the Atlanta Falcons and the New England Patriots and the Tennessee Titans and the Florida Gators and so on and so forth, even Syracuse, who had to postpone their start of their first home game this season against Georgia Tech for 36 minutes to test 3 players one more time. What are your thoughts on coronavirus in sports? We've seen football endure. We've seen other sports endure. But we're also hearing on a weekly level college football and the NFL having to move games around and shift their schedules.
The bubble wasn't going to work in this situation. You're going to give the NBA credit and the MSL. They did a good job, and they really did a good job. They planned very well, and they put their protocols in place. A bubble's not going to work in this situation with college and football and pro football. But months ago, you and I came out and I said, listen, some of these conferences have already shut down the sports for the entire fall. They're not going to address it.
The Ivy League and the
January.
Patriot League, yeah.
Yep, and it's, and it shouldn't have started. College football and pro football should have sat on the sidelines, played in the spring, and not have all this anxiety we have throughout the country. Man, it's of course we can say that now, but some conferences had the nerve to go ahead and do it and shut it down. Of course, they're not big conferences, and they don't have a lot of money coming from their football coffers. But, it made the Big Ten wake up a little bit, and the Pac-12 out there, so they're going to start their season later. But why even start it? We should have never started to begin with. So, I'm really ticked about that, but it's going to put a lot of kids in harm's way, and it should have never happened.
So that's where we are right now as we look at this and see where things are currently with the college football world and the NFL trying to navigate and find their way. The NFL will not have a Thursday night game this week due to the fact of coronavirus and trying to get things back on schedule. I said yesterday that they would not have a Sunday night. That was my mistake. They do have a Sunday night game, Rams at the Niners. And they will have 2 Monday night games once again, one of them being played at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, which means that there will be Monday Night Football on Monday afternoon on the West Coast at 2 p.m. So a little bit different, but still very strange. Papa Joe, what do you think about Tuesday night football that we had the Bills and the Titans? The game was horrible for the Bills, but we had a Tuesday night football game, and as I put up there when the game, right before the game happened, I put my bum, 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 bum. So, what were your thoughts on Tuesday night football?
Oh, Dan, I can't watch football at night. I get too sleepy. Old people like us got to go to bed early. Sometimes I'll catch a game for the first half.
Yeah.
If it starts at 8 o'clock, I can catch the first half. But past that, I'm done. Even with baseball now, the baseball games are starting about 8 o'clock, so I can get through 5 or 6 innings before the old body just weakens and I have to go to sleep. But it's unusual. The NFL will try anything to make a buck. They could have games on 7 nights a week if they had. If they let them, they would have them.
Well, they might. This season, they might have to do it to finish the season. We might see football Monday through Sunday. So it could happen, and fans might be turning around saying, that's what I want. I want games every day. And then they might see them every day, and then they might get fatigued of it and go, I don't want to see a game every day. I need a break. I watch NCIS on Tuesdays, or, I watch Big Brother, and Big Brother got moved on CBS. So, that's my show, PJ. Let's go, Big Brother. Let's go, Big Brother. I'm playing a fantasy Big Brother league this year where I have people on the show on my fantasy team, and 2 of my fantasy players have made it to the Final 5. So when I'm on the show someday, PJ, potentially, if that's what God wills, I want to let you know that I will have a sign for you and for Miss Mary and Meatball number 1. I'll have signs, so when I talk to somebody in a room, you'll know whether or not I like them or if I'm going to be letting them go by something that I do, like how I touch my face or something of that respect. And so as much as I know as you're not Big Brother fans, as Mary calls it, banal, which I found what that word meant, but if I'm on the show, I know you guys are going to be watching.
Of course. It is a banal show, though.
That coming from PJ. If you don't know what banal means, just think about a sewage backup in a toilet, but worse. That's what banal essentially means. PJ, it's time for us to make our picks for college football week 7. We're going to do a couple college football week 7, a little sprinkle, and then we're going to do a little sprinkle of the NFL too. I want to do a little bit of both. We're going to shake it up today. So Clemson at Georgia Tech. Any hopes that Georgia Tech pulls off a victory against a team that just embarrassed the Miami Hurricanes?
No. They're playing at Georgia Tech, which is maybe give them a little bit of a bump. But Clemson is just too good. I watched them a little bit this last weekend, and Clemson is another team that can score at will whenever they want to, just like a Florida or anyone else. They're highly offensively motivated, and they can score at will. And I'm surprised that they didn't. They haven't scored 50 points a game. I'm surprised or 60 points a game. They can very easily do that.
Yeah, I'm going with Clemson as well in this matchup. Too much for Georgia Tech, even though they're going to be in Georgia. Cincinnati at Tulsa. Tulsa has played strong. They played tough. They hung with Oklahoma State. They held Oklahoma State to 16 points. I believe that they had 14 tackles for a loss in that game. Did a lot of great stuff defensively against Oklahoma State. Didn't have enough on the offense. Then they did something to UCF that hadn't happened in a long time. UCF had a 21 home game winning streak. That streak started after a loss in 2016, and it ended after a loss in 2020. Do you know what team was the team to beat them in 2016 in UCF and 2020 in UCF? It was the same team both times. Tulsa defeated UCF before their 21 home game winning streak, and they ended that home game winning streak for UCF recently here. Tulsa now has Cincinnati at home in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Any chance that Tulsa hits both top teams in the American?
Absolutely. Tulsa is very much for real this year. Cincinnati may be ranked a little bit higher than where I think they need to be. This is a real seriously difficult game for Tulsa. They're playing at Tulsa. Cincinnati needs to really pay attention to what's happening here because they could very well lose this game. And frankly, I like Tulsa. I like Tulsa straight up, actually.
You got Tulsa. It was hard for me to pick against Tulsa, but I'm going with Cincinnati, ranked in the nation's top 10, and we'll see what they can do from here. I do think it's going to be an incredible game, and even though it's being played at noon, an early game on ESPN, 2, to me, personally, it's one of my games of the week. Pittsburgh at Miami. Pittsburgh's unranked, but they've been ranked this season. Miami is 13th after losing and falling out of the top 10 after that loss to Clemson, an embarrassing loss to Clemson. They didn't even get to 15 points in the game. So what are your thoughts on Miami at home against Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh, who has played they did get to 15 points. They didn't get to 20. They lost 42-17. Thoughts on Pittsburgh at Miami? Any shot that Pittsburgh plays spoiler again?
No, I don't think so. For as good as Miami looked against Florida State, they looked just as poor against Clemson. It seems like two different teams. Granted, Florida State's not what they're supposed to be, even though Florida State played Notre Dame tough this last week. I don't see Miami tripping up at all on this. Frankly, I think it'll be a runaway.
You think it's going to be a runaway? I'm taking Pittsburgh on the road.
Oh my goodness gracious!
So I'm going with the Pitt Panthers on the road. How about this game? Louisville, who was ranked coming into the season and has fallen out of the rankings after they've had a terrible showing to start the season. Notre Dame is number 4 in the nation, and Notre Dame has played absolutely nobody of merit. They defeated Duke, who's 1-4. They shut out USF with their new head coach trying to rebuild yet again. And they defeated an FSU team that is awful this year. So, please, Papa Joe, who do you pick with Louisville at Notre Dame, number 1? And number 2, why should Notre Dame be ranked in the nation's top 4 after beating 3 teams that are not only unranked, but probably may not be ranked all season?
Oh, that's Notre Dame's alumni talking right there, bud.
Yeah.
They don't. Louisville will probably be competitive for a while, but Notre Dame just has too many good players and they're too deep. Playing at Notre Dame, so I don't see Louisville tripping them up here. But I do have to agree that I think Notre Dame is vastly overrated.
Yeah.
To me, they're overrated every year. I think every year they're overrated. I know they're trying to squeeze themselves into the playoff this year, but they just, I don't know. I'm just never been a Notre Dame guy, and I just think that they're too overrated. But I think that they should be able to handle Louisville.
Yeah, I think they'll handle Louisville, but I agree with you. They're outrageously overrated. Outrageously. I have respect for Notre Dame, but I have respect for the team, but rankings should be earned. We obviously know that's not the truth with Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, and half of the Big Ten being ranked right now, but it should be earned. Georgia at Alabama, the number 3 team in the nation, against the number 2 team in the nation. In both polls, AP and Coaches poll, that's where they're at. That's where they're at 3 and 2, respectively. Georgia at Alabama. What do you have for this one?
Well, if you want to see defense being played this season, which it hasn't been played a lot, you're going to see a Georgia defense blow up a little bit here. I think Alabama's another team where they can score at will. I think this kid that backed up Tua last year is just as good as the rest of them, and he can score at will also. Georgia's defense will play tough. I think they got a rising quarterback here.
Yeah.
The kid called Stetson. I can't remember his last name, but anyway, I do believe that Georgia's defense, I think, will play Alabama tough, and I do believe that Georgia will squeak by in this one, even though they're playing at Alabama.
Oh wow! Okay, I got Alabama. The Nick Saban may not be there to coach this game physically, testing positive for corona. However, Nick Saban will find a way. He's like Bill Belichick. It's like that mole that just won't go away. So he'll find a way to get it done. Alabama gets the victory in this one, where I disagree with Papa Joe. PJ, before we do a couple in the NFL, let's go to Liberty at Syracuse. This game, every time I say Liberty at Syracuse, my stomach drops. I feel like there's a pit in my stomach. I don't like the feeling because I know the reality of this game. Liberty at Syracuse. Liberty is undefeated. What do you got?
Well, certainly Liberty is not a major proponent. They're not a major college football team. I don't think that – look, Syracuse has to wake up. Coach Babers has got to do his job up there. Whatever he's doing, it ain't working. So if they can't beat Duke, I don't think they're going to beat Liberty. However, me being a Syracuse guy, I'm going to stick with Syracuse.
I'm sticking with Syracuse in this game as well, although the pit in my stomach will not go away until probably 4 p.m. Saturday when the game is over, seeing what happens, if they are to win. NFL side, PJ, let's do just a couple here. Green Bay, your family up in Wisconsin, are coming down to your home of the Sunshine State. Green Bay will play Tampa Bay. The Battle of the Bays, Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. Tom Brady said that if Aaron Rodgers was on those New England Patriots teams, he'd probably look even better than Tom Brady would. Tom Brady said that about himself. Aaron Rodgers would probably do more with what I had. What happens when Aaron Rodgers goes to Tampa?
This is going to be a hell of a game. I wouldn't be surprised if this game sets a viewer record to watch. It's going to be a great game to watch. I firstly believe that Tom Brady will rise Tampa Bay to one of the better teams in the league. However, Green Bay is playing it at the high level right now. Their defense is lax. They're suspect.
Yeah.
But I think Aaron Rodgers can outscore Tom Brady, so I'm going to go with Green Bay.
I'm going with Green Bay as well. I wonder if people can get away in Vegas of saying, I'm going to bet on the Bay this week, and then they just walk away. I'm going to go with the Bay. I think the Bay is going to be all right. So Green Bay, I'm taking them as well. Aaron Rodgers, a little bit too much with an offense that is clicking on all cylinders. Tampa still has some work to do with that. Only other game that I want to make note of here, Kansas City at Buffalo. Kansas City is coming off of a loss. Buffalo is coming off of a loss. One of these teams that started the season undefeated will have 2 losses after this game unless they tie. Who will have the loss, Kansas City or Buffalo?
Well, I think Buffalo will. I think Kansas City needed a wake-up call, and they got it. And I think Coach Reed's not going to let the team lose this week. So I look for Kansas City to really forge ahead.
I'm going to go with Kansas City as well. Hard to believe that the Bills could go 0-2 in their last 2 games, but I believe that they will. Kansas City gets the dub. Find out more from these picks and so much more in our spin-off show from Wake Up Call. DT and Murphy make the picks, a show right up Papa Joe's alley when it comes to betting and all that good stuff. We'll have a show for you called DT and Murphy Make the Picks, predictions in college football, the NFL, and as well as Major League Baseball. PJ, as always, I appreciate you. Looks like it's going to be Rays and Dodgers. What do you think about that really quick?
Look at the Rays are up 3-1. Atlanta's up 2-1. Although I watched the game last night, yes, during supper time, Atlanta was playing Los Angeles. Los Angeles scored 11 runs in the first inning. The game was over. They hit a grand slam and a 3-run homer. They just wiped them out the first inning. So if Los Angeles gets the bats going, they bring Clayton Kershaw in for a couple of times, they should climb back into the series. Houston's too good to be down 3-1 against the Rays. The Rays had the best team in the league this year. They had the best record, and this was no fluke. They are no fluke. I like the Rays, but I do think Los Angeles will come back and beat Atlanta. So it looks like Los Angeles and the Rays in the World Series.
That's what it looks like as we move forward here. Some love for the Tampa-St. Pete area. PJ, as always, I send my love down to the Sunshine State, and I look forward to talking with you very soon. In the meantime, be safe and be well, and give hugs and kisses to the best of the best down there, okay?
Okay. I'll see you, kid.
Take care. That coming from Papa Joe here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets life. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break. When we spin back around here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, it'll be time for us to get into our conversation with Eric Kroom. Kroom's going to be joining us from Syracuse football history to speak on the state of the Orange inside of maandpazpopcorn.com's What's Poppin', and use that online promo code at maandpazpopcorn.com. That is DT20, DT20 to get 20% off all of your orders, whether it's in-store pickup or you're having it shipped to your place of business or place of residence. Make sure you do that now. Inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, 5 locations. Today I'm going and getting myself something to drink at Cafe Kubal, and I'm probably getting one of those chocolate chip cookies that are absolutely fantastic. You should find your way to Cafe Kubal today with 5 locations in our community, as well as mobile cafe coming to your place of business and your neighborhood, and home delivery coming to you wherever you are. And if you're in Onondaga County, you don't pay a delivery fee. Cafe Kubal, finding every way possible to get to you and make it easy. We appreciate them. We appreciate local business in our community, and we support CNY every day. Make sure you do as well. We'll be back after this fast break.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat Family-Friendly Sports Pub and Restaurant.